I'd like to talk about some other ethical theories now. And what I find very, very helpful here are the three elements of moral process, or the three criteria. And I keep coming back to these because they are so helpful for evaluating ethical theories. So there's our intention, our purpose, the act or the means, the outcome, the end or the consequences. If we take away any of these, we detract from the dignity of moral process. So in that light, let's look at some moral theories. Situation ethics was very popular in the 1960s, and it holds that the situation alters our moral priorities. Situation ethics basically says that there are no moral norms except one, that someone should do the most loving thing in a situation. Now, from one perspective, situation ethics has a real lack of faith in human freedom. It denies free will, and it says that circumstances, not our conscience, will make the decision about how we live our lives. But using the threefold criteria, situation ethics, the way it's usually expressed, allows for intentions and outcomes. Now those are good, but it neglects the acts or the means of morality. And in many cases, it's encouraged acts that are less than desirable in themselves in the hope for goodness. So sometimes situation ethics will say, if one's pursuing the most loving thing, that one can do things which are otherwise considered evil in the hope of the greater good. So in that way, situation ethics fulfills two criteria, intention and outcome, but it fails on the acts or the means. In a similar way, we can look at proportionalism, and proportionalism is still very popular in Catholic morality. The basic tenet of proportionalism is that we should always seek for the greater good, the greater outcome. And in that way, it's very similar to consequentialism and utilitarianism. Now, seeking the greater good is noble in itself, but proportionalism holds that we can do something that's objectively evil in order that a greater good can come about. And so, just like situation ethics, proportionalism is about good intentions and the hope of good outcomes, but it fails to present a morally complete set of actions, because the acts it pursues can be less than moral. Proportionalism can be a case of doing evil in the hope that good can come about, and that's been condemned by Scripture and by church teaching. Remember what St. Paul said. He condemned the idea in Romans 3:8 that we can do evil so that good can come about. The problem with proportionalism, and again, it's important to remember that these moral theories are well-intentioned and there is a lot of truth to them. But the weakness in proportionalism is that it holds that we can make ourselves into wrongdoers in the hope that we can do right. And in my opinion, that fails the second of the criteria for moral action. Proportionalism intends to do good. It seeks a great outcome, but it fails in the integrity of the act or the means. I might just mention hedonism as well. People speak about hedonism and they ask, where would we put hedonism? Most people would say that hedonists have no moral intentions, no commitment to acts, just the end of pleasure. But I would put hedonism in the commitment of acts. I think hedonists have no moral intentions, they have no end in sight. Their life is just the desire for pleasurable acts. And that's sad in a way, I think, because the consummate hedonist is someone who has no notion of where they're coming from and no idea of where they're going. Now, if you want an example of hedonism, I think the lifestyle of Hugh Hefner is illuminating. Hugh Hefner was the founder of Playboy magazine. His lifestyle was a lifestyle of hedonism of pure pleasure. And in a more contemporary context, at the risk of sounding judgmental, but I'll take the risk, I would put into the category of hedonism a good number of Instagram influencers. That is, there is no intention there, and there's certainly no intended outcome for good, but simply the pleasure of the moment or the pleasure of the Instagram post. Something to think about there. Let's look at a couple of other theories. First of all, relativism. Now, in ethical theory, there are two types of relativism. There's descriptive ethical relativism that simply claims, as a matter of fact, that different people have different moral beliefs. And descriptive relativism just acknowledges that difference and takes no stand on whether those beliefs are valid or not. So descriptive relativism would point out that some people are what they call pro-choice and others are what they call pro-life. It would outline the reasons for each position. Now, one could say that descriptive relativism simply describes our world the way it is. There is, on the other hand, normative ethical relativism, and it claims that each culture or each group's beliefs are right within that culture, and that it's impossible to validly judge another's cultural values from the perspective of the other. So, to use the example I just gave, a normative relativist would say that one person is pro-choice, another is pro-life, and both are equally valid. Now, the problem with normative relativism is that it leads to logical contradictions. If you are a true relativist, you have to allow that two opposite positions can both be true. The reality is, no one does that in real life. We all make judgments based on human values and what we hold to be true or real. I also think that the real test of normative relativism is when people are affected personally. To give an example, let's consider terrorism. From a comfortable armchair in a safe house, it's very easy to be relativistic and to say something like, one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter. But if you are a passenger on a plane being hijacked, or if you live in a part of the world where terrorism is a real daily threat, then I suspect you may have an opinion about the objective evil of terrorism.